Making pizza is super simple. First thing you've got to do is make the dough. 6 ingredients. You've got water, oil, dried yeast, some sugar, and some salt. You can do it by hand or you can put it into the food mixer here. Food mix is easy, and you just turn it on a really low speed and let that mix for about 5 minutes to 10 minutes. After the water, the yeast, the sugar, the salt and the oils mix for 5 minutes, then we add the flour. Now you can use baker's flour or just plain flour. Turn it back on a nice low speed and just let that mix for about 15 minutes until you have a beautiful pizza dough. So once the dough is mixed, pop it into a mixing bowl and let it sit there for about an hour or two, covered with some Glad wrap or even a wet tea towel. And what happens is it proves, or it doubles in size, becomes really beautiful and aerated. Then we knock all the air out of the pizza dough. And then we just divide it into about 150 gram balls, or about the size of a tennis ball. Roll it around on the bench. This is a great one to get the kids involved with. Super easy. Once you've rolled out your balls, let them sit on the bench for another good 20 to 30 minutes and they'll prove up again and double in size. This will give you a beautiful, crisp, light pizza base. Okay, now when you roll out your pizza dough, I love to use this. This is semolina. It's a dried cracked wheat. Instead of putting flour on your bench, I find this gives you a really lovely, crispy base and it's good to work with as well. Just with your rolling pin, just very gently roll out from the centre to each side. The most important thing here is to get it as thin as possible and as even as possible. That way the pizza will cook evenly. You can flip it if you want. It doesn't do anything, it just looks good. Paper underneath the dough. And before we put the toppings on, we need to dock it or put little air holes into it. You can do it two ways, either with a fork. Now this stops huge air bubbles from happening throughout the pizza and gives it even cooking. Or use one of these things, which is a pastry docker, which is basically a fork on wheels. And now we're ready to top. And before you top it, always make sure your pizza oven is red hot. Turn it up to preheat for about 5 to 10 minutes before you top. All right, now, the tomato sauce. The way I make my tomato sauce is whole peeled tomatoes blended with salt, pepper and dried oregano. You don't need to put too much of the sauce on, but just enough so it's evenly covered, right out to the edges. Next is some cheese, some mozzarella. This is the basic stuff you get in any supermarket or store. And this acts as the glue, so all the ingredients stick to it. Now, I don't like to put too much of this cheese on, about 20 grams. Some sliced tomato for the pepperoni pizza. You could use cherry tomatoes or heirloom tomatoes, or just basically the vine-ripened or Roma tomatoes. Whatever you've got and whatever's the ripest. Next is the pepperoni. Now, if you're like me, I like hot pepperoni. So this has got a little bit of heat to it, bit of kick. Put a little bit more on than you think you need, because what happens with the pepperoni is it shrinks as it cooks. So cover the whole pizza, there we go. I love this. This is some slow roasted garlic in olive oil. You don't have to put this on. You can put raw garlic on as well and let it cook in there, but I love the flavour of this. We just break that up in our hands. Some chopped parsley. Some salt and pepper. Always season your pizzas with some salt and pepper. And last but not least, either some bocconcini, or this is Italian buffalo milk mozzarella. It's a luxury ingredient, but a little bit goes a long way. Now, the beautiful thing about this is the ceramic stone, which makes the pizza base go crispy. And this gets hotter than a domestic oven, so that's why the pizzas come out of here within 4 to 5 minutes, beautifully crisp. Now, we don't cook with the baking paper in there the whole period, but at least for a minute, just until the base starts to cook, and then we can remove the paper. Now, we're going to remove the paper just with a little spatula. So the secret to making a great pizza is a few things. Of course, the dough's important, but I don't think it's the most important. The two things I think are the most important is how hot your equipment can get and also the toppings that you use. With the Breville pizza oven, we've got an element on the top and an element underneath, and in between that we've got the ceramic stone. Now, what I say is to season it. Now, just like you do with a wok, but instead of using salt in a wok, we use flour. The first time you buy your oven, turn it up as hot as possible, put some flour over it, and let that flour cook into it for about 15 minutes and basically burn. And that way your stone is seasoned and ready to use. A lot of people want it to look beautiful, clean, which you don't want to do. It's impossible to do. So you never wash it, because what happens is, because it's porous, the water soaks in, and then when you go to reuse your oven, all that water escapes and cooks, and so you end up having a steamer oven, which gives you a soggy pizza. Once you've cooked your pizza, just with a spatula, let it cool down, and then scrape any of the leftover cheese that's burnt onto the surface. Scrape that off, and then just with a cloth or a chucks, a dry chucks, just clean off any of the flour or semolina that's left over. You want it to look messy. Well loved is what I say. Now the pizza's been cooking for about 4 to 5 minutes, and have a look at that. How simple and how tasty. I like to finish it just with some mint leaves. Works really well with the spicy pepperoni and the cheese. There you have it, pepperoni pizza. And the ultimate test is to check out the base. Look at that, crispy, golden.